Hey, thanks for clicking on my video. If this video helps you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. It is greatly appreciated and it really helps. Let's get to the video. Let's talk about degree and radian measure of some special angles. So as we see on the screen right here, we have some special angles around our circle here, starting with 0 degrees and going from 0 to 90 to 180 to 270 all the way back to 360. And then we have essentially half of those angle measures. So between 0 and 90, we have 45 degrees. Between 90 and 180, we have 135. Between 180 and 270, we have 225. And between 270 and 360, we have 315. And then we're splitting those sections in half as well. So that leaves us with 0, 30, 45, 60, 90 in quadrant 1. Quadrant 2 would be 120, 135, 150, all the way to 180. Quadrant 3 would be 210, 225, 240 to 270. And then quadrant 4, 300, 315, 330. And then to 360. So those degree measures are there. What we're going to do is we're going to add the radian measure so that we can maybe memorize or at least the measures in quadrant 1 so that we can have some easier calculations later on as we continue working through Algebra 2 and even into pre-calculus. So over here to the right of the screen, we see our conversion ratio from degrees to radians. We want to multiply our degree measure by pi over 180. So we're going to use that to start off with. Well, obviously, if we have 0 degrees, we have 0 pi, right? And so for 30 degrees, we would say 30 pi over 180. And we could just reduce 30 over 180 to be 1 over 6. So we're going to start off and say that 30 degrees is the same as pi over 6. Okay? Now, if we did 45 pi over 180, now we see, okay, that's 1/4, right? So we would say this would be pi over 4. And then we would do 60 pi over 180, and we would see that that is 1/3 pi. So pi over 3. And then 90 pi over 180, we would see that is pi over 2. Okay, so now these four measures here, pi over 6, pi over 4, pi over 3, pi over 2, those are probably the main conversion degree to radians that we want to memorize or at least understand pretty well, because the rest of these measures we're going to see are just multiples of those four measures that we already have. Okay, so let's start off, let's go to 120. So if we notice 120, there's a couple different ways we could arrive at 120, right? 120 is either 4 times 30 degrees or 2 times 60 degrees. Okay, either way, we're going to get the correct radian measure. We might just have to reduce. So if we choose 60 degrees, we notice that 120 is twice that measure. So this should just be 2 pi over 3. Okay, and then 135, we can make a connection here to 45. So 135, we go from 45 to 135, and we see that that is going to be 3 pi over 4. So 3 pi over 4, right? Because we have 45, 90, and then 135. So then let's go to 150. So 150, we see a connection here between 30 and 150. That would be 5 times 30, right? So this is going to be 5 pi over 6, and then we get to pi for 180 degrees. Okay, so 180 from 90, 90 is pi over 2, so 90 times 2 would give us 180, so pi over 2 times 2, so 180 degrees is equal to pi. All right, now for 210, I notice a connection here that would be 7 times 30 would give us 210, right? So this is going to be 7 pi over 6. Now for 225, we notice that for 225 over from 45, that's going to be 5 of 45, right? So we have 45 times 5. We know 45 times 4. 45 and 45 is 90. Another 90 would be 45 times 4. That's going to give us 180. And then we have an additional 45, so that is 5 pi over 4. All right, so let's erase our line there. Now for 240, I notice here that would be 4 times 60 degrees. So we do 4 pi over 3 for that one. And for 270, that would be like pi and a half, right? So this is going to be 3 pi over 2. Okay, now for our last quadrant here for 300, notice that 300 would be 5 times 60 degrees. So this is going to be 5 pi over 3. Another one for 300, what if you would have said, oh, it's 10 times 30 degrees? Well, that's exactly right. It's 10 pi over 6, which reduces to 5 pi over 3, right? See, so we might have to reduce there just depending on where we get our conversion from. All right, in 315, we noticed that from 45, 315 would be 7 times, so 7 pi over 4. And for 330, from 30 degrees, that would be 11 times, so 11 pi over 6. And then lastly, 360 degrees is going to be equal to 2 pi, okay? So those are some special degree radian measures for special angles that we would want to be as familiar with as possible. And so now let's look at some examples to use that those special angles with. So it says convert the measure. Number 1 says 135 degrees. So do we see 135? We do. So we're going to say that one is equal to 3 pi over 4, and that would be radians. All right, number 2, we have negative 40 degrees. So for negative 40 degrees, essentially what we're doing there for negative, we're just starting and our terminal side of our angle is going clockwise instead of counterclockwise. So we could think about it as 40 degrees, but just negative, right? Well, we don't see 40 degrees on here. We know it would be pretty close to pi over 4, so 1/4 pi, but we can just use our conversion pi over 180 to help us figure that one out. So we're going to do negative 40 pi over 180, and that's going to reduce to 2 over 9, negative 2 over 9. So we could say this is negative 2 over 9, negative 2 pi over 9 radians, okay? All right, number 3, we're going from radians. We have pi in our measure, so we're going to convert it from radians to degrees. So 5 pi over 4, do we see 5 pi over 4? We do, and it is equal to 225 degrees. And our last one looks a little bit weird. It doesn't have a degree symbol, and it also doesn't have the pi symbol. So in this case, we're going to say this would be a radian measure because we don't see a degree. And negative 6.28, well, we know pi is roughly 3.14, so times 2 would be 6.28. So we're just going to say this is approximately or about negative 360 degrees, okay? So we'll go back up here to the top. These are some special radian and degree measures for special angles and how we can use them, memorize them to help make our lives a little bit easier in math class.